Look, I didn't ask for this job, Commander Jack Hudson muttered as he straightened his uniform for the 14th time. I was supposed to be on leave this week. The sleek alien shuttle descended through Earth's atmosphere with all the subtlety of a disco ball at a funeral. Its chrome exterior reflected the sunlight in patterns that made air traffic controllers reach for sunglasses and aspirin simultaneously. Of all the military personnel on Earth, they picked me. Jack continued his complaint to nobody in particular, because apparently I have excellent communication skills and a calm demeanor under pressure, which is code for sucker who can't say no. 6 months ago, the Galactic Coalition had arrived at the edge of our solar system in ships that made Earth's most advanced technology look like a child's science fair project. After the initial panic, screaming, and conspiracy theories about lizard people subsided, humanity had started the long process of joining the interstellar community. Today was Jack's first day as Earth's military liaison. Yesterday he'd been managing logistics for a peacekeeping mission in Eastern Europe. Now he was about to represent the entire planet's defense forces to aliens who could probably vaporize Earth without spilling their morning beverage equivalent. The shuttle touched down with a soft hiss on the landing pad outside the newly constructed Galactic Embassy in Geneva. The doors slid open to reveal 3 figures that could have stepped straight out of a sci-fi convention, if sci-fi conventions had better costume designers and significantly higher budgets. Commander Hudson, the tallest alien, said. Its skin shimmered with iridescent blues and greens, and it had 4 arms folded in what Jack hoped was a gesture of greeting rather than disgust. I am Ambassador Thrix. These are my associates, Inspector Crix and Cultural Liaison Vila. Jack forced a smile. Welcome to Earth. It's an honor to. We require a full accounting of your planet's military capabilities, interrupted Inspector Crix, a stocky yellow-skinned being with eyes that blinked horizontally. Troops, vehicles, weapons, orbital defenses, everything. Jack blinked. I was thinking we might start with a tour, or perhaps some refreshments. The Coalition requires all prospective member planets to disclose their full military strength, Vila explained in a gentler tone. She was the most humanoid of the 3, differing mainly in her silver skin, and the delicate antennae that quivered slightly as she spoke. It's standard procedure. And entirely non-negotiable, added Crix. Jack's smile stiffened. Of course, I understand completely. A full military census should be simple enough. Ambassador Thrix made a sound that might have been a laugh. Excellent. We expect the complete report within 1 Earth week. 1 week. Jack's calm demeanor slipped momentarily. But that's more than generous. Thrix finished for him. Many species complete the process in half that time. As the aliens brushed past him toward the embassy building, Jack stared at the shuttle and briefly considered hijacking it for a one-way trip to anywhere else in the galaxy. 1 week, he whispered to himself. To count every tank, plane, ship, and soldier on the entire planet. He pulled out his phone and started dialing. I'm going to need a lot more coffee. What do you mean you estimate you have between 3,000 and 5,000 tanks? Jack pinched the bridge of his nose so hard he worried he might permanently damage his sinuses. How does a military lose track of 2,000 tanks? The colonel on the video call looked uncomfortable. Well, sir, it depends on what you count as a tank. Do we include light tanks, tank destroyers, self-propelled artillery? And then there's the question of operational readiness. Count everything with treads and a big gun, Jack interrupted. I don't care if it's from World War II and being used as a lawn ornament. Just give me numbers. 3 days into his new assignment, and Jack was discovering that Earth's militaries were better at acquiring weapons than keeping track of them. Each country had different classification systems, different levels of transparency, and wildly different attitudes toward information sharing. The door to his makeshift office slid open, and Inspector Crix marched in without knocking, followed by Vila. Commander Hudson. Crix's horizontal eyelids blinked rapidly, which Jack had learned indicated irritation. We expected a preliminary report yesterday. Jack gestured helplessly at the stacks of papers and multiple computer screens displaying incompatible spreadsheets. I'm working as fast as I can, Inspector. Earth has over 190 independent nations, each with their own military structures. This is most unusual, Crix said. Most species consolidate their military forces before achieving spaceflight. Yeah, well, humans are special that way, Jack muttered. We prefer to keep pointing guns at each other while also shooting them into space. Vila stepped forward, her antennae tilting in what seemed like curiosity. Perhaps I could assist. I have experience with data harmonization. Before Jack could respond, his phone rang. He glanced at the caller ID'd the Chinese military attaché. "Excuse me, I need to take this." The conversation involved much shouting in Mandarin, which Jack barely understood, followed by an English translation that made even less sense. He hung up and added another note to his increasingly chaotic spreadsheet. "Good news," he announced with forced cheerfulness. "China has agreed to share their numbers. Bad news, they'll only give them to us encoded in a cipher based on 14th century poetry." Crix made a harsh clicking sound. "Commander, the Coalition is beginning to suspect Earth of deliberate obfuscation. Some members of the Council believe you are hiding massive military capabilities." Jack laughed so hard he nearly fell out of his chair. "Trust me, Inspector, if we were organized enough to hide anything, we'd be organized enough to just give you the real numbers." Vila's silver skin flushed slightly. "Nevertheless, we must insist on progress. The Coalition cannot admit members who appear to be deceptive." "Fine," Jack sighed, reaching for his cold coffee. "I'll pull an all-nighter and get you something by morning. It won't be complete, but it'll be something." As the aliens left, Jack turned back to his computer and opened an email from the Russian Defense Ministry. The subject line read, "Correcting previous figures, please multiply by factor of 0.1. "Great," he muttered. "Now they're telling me they have fewer weapons than they claimed yesterday. If only our enemies were this confused about our capabilities." Jack stared at his screen, eyes bloodshot from 27 consecutive hours without sleep. The preliminary report was finally ready, and with only minutes to spare before the morning meeting with the Coalition representatives. "Send," he muttered, clicking the button and collapsing back in his chair. Done. What Jack didn't notice was the error in cell G197 of his master spreadsheet. A simple typo, an extra K in the formula, which in their database system was shorthand for multiplying by 1,000. This transformed Earth's global tank count from a respectable 44,000 to a terrifying 44 million. When Jack stumbled into the conference room 30 minutes later, clutching a triple espresso like it contained the elixir of life, he was confused by the scene before him. Inspector Crix was pacing frantically, all four of his arms gesticulating wildly. Ambassador Thrix had turned a pale shade of blue-green that didn't seem healthy. And Vila was staring at a holographic projection of Earth's military report, with her antennae completely rigid. "Good morning," Jack yawned. "I see you got my report. Is this accurate?" Crix demanded, thrusting a tablet into Jack's face. Jack squinted at the numbers, his sleep-deprived brain taking several seconds to process what he was seeing. When it finally clicked, he choked on his coffee. 44 million tanks? No, that's definitely wrong. We don't have. He admits it. Crix spun toward Ambassador Thrix. They'd been concealing their true military strength. What? No, Jack frantically tapped at the tablet. This is just a typo. We have around 44,000 tanks, not 44 million. That would be one tank for every 175 people on Earth. Where would we even park them all? Ambassador Thrix's color began returning to normal. So you're saying this was an error? Yes. A simple clerical error, Jack insisted. Look, I'll fix it right now. As Jack corrected the number, Vila leaned over his shoulder. But Commander, if this was a mistake, what about these other figures? Are your nuclear missile counts accurate? Your submarine fleet? Your orbital defense platforms? Jack froze. Orbital defense platforms? We don't have any of those. Crix's eyes blinked rapidly. Then why does your report list 320 of them? Jack stared at the tablet in horror. There it was, in black and white, 320 orbital defense platforms. He had no idea where that number had come from. That's definitely wrong. We have 0 orbital platforms. 0. So you're saying your report contains multiple major errors? Ambassador Thrix's voice had taken on a dangerous edge. I was working with incomplete data from 190 countries in dozens of formats, Jack protested. Some mistakes were bound to happen. Or Inspector Crix said, leaning in close. This is exactly what a species would do if they were trying to conceal their true capabilities while establishing plausible deniability. That's ridiculous, Jack sputtered. Why would we first exaggerate our forces and then immediately admit it was a mistake? An extremely sophisticated deception strategy, Crix whispered, more to himself than to Jack. Truly brilliant. As Jack tried to form a response, his phone pinged with a message from the Pentagon. India just reported their naval vessels in elephant units. Please convert to actual ship count ASAP. Jack closed his eyes and wondered if those alien shuttles had an ejection seat. Apparently, we now have laser bears, Jack announced as he walked into the emergency meeting with Earth's hastily assembled interstellar relations team. We have what now? General Rodriguez asked, looking up from her tablet. Laser bears. Jack tossed a translation of an alien news report onto the table. According to the Coalition gossip channels, Earth has genetically engineered bears with laser vision. Also, our oceans are allegedly filled with nuclear submarines, one for every 20 regular ships. Dr. Emily Watson, the team's xenoanthropologist, couldn't contain her laughter. How did we go from a simple spreadsheet error to laser bears in just 3 days? The answer materialized in the form of a holographic transmission interrupting their meeting. A bulky, purple-skinned alien in an elaborate uniform appeared above the center of the table. Extra armor plates jutted from his shoulders, and a scar ran diagonally across his face in what seemed like an intentional fashion statement. Greetings, warriors of Earth, the alien boomed. I am Admiral Zorn of the Claxian Dominion. I wish to address the worthy opponents who have hidden such impressive military might from the galaxy for so long. Jack's mouth fell open. The Claxians weren't even part of the Coalition delegation. How did you get this communication frequency? General Rodriguez demanded. Zorn's facial tentacles wiggled in what might have been a smile. When one hears of a potential worthy adversary, one makes it their business to establish contact. Your deception technique is admirable, declaring impossible numbers and then claiming they were errors. Classic misdirection. It wasn't misdirection, Jack began. It was just a... Dr. Watson kicked him under the table and jumped in. Thank you for your appreciation, Admiral. May I ask what your interest is in Earth's military capabilities? The Claxian Dominion respects strength and cunning. We have been searching the galaxy for opponents worthy of our battle fleet. Zorn leaned closer to the camera. The Coalition thinks you are hiding your numbers out of strategic secrecy. But I know better. You want to be underestimated, don't you? This conversation is over, Rodriguez declared, reaching for the disconnect button. We will be watching Earth with great interest, Zorn bellowed before his image disappeared. Silence fell over the room. So Jack finally said, on top of everything else, we now have battle-hungry aliens excited about our non-existent super army. Lieutenant Park, the team's strategic analyst, tapped thoughtfully on the table. You know, this could actually work in our favor. How exactly? Jack demanded. The Coalition is suspicious, yes, but that suspicion is giving us protection. Did you notice none of the originally hostile species have made aggressive moves since your spreadsheet went viral? Dr. Watson nodded slowly. She's right. The Zubat Collective was planning to demand mining rights to our asteroid belt, but they've gone completely silent. So you're suggesting what? Lean into this ridiculous misunderstanding, Jack asked incredulously. General Rodriguez's expression had shifted to one of calculating interest. Not permanently, just until we establish ourselves more securely in the galactic community. And how exactly do I do that? Jack asked. Simple, Park replied with a grin. Neither confirm nor deny anything. Look mysterious when they ask direct questions. Occasionally make vague references to weapons testing areas. Jack put his head in his hands. So our official planetary defense strategy is now act suspicious and hope everyone stays scared of our imaginary laser bears. Pretty much, Rodriguez confirmed, looking far too comfortable with the idea. Oh, and Jack? Admiral Zorn seems to have taken a special interest in you. You might want to invest in some better encryption for your personal devices. Fantastic, Jack muttered. I've become the intergalactic military pen pal to an alien warlord who collects worthy enemies like trading cards. The Droxians have agreed to our terms, the UN Secretary-General announced, sounding mildly bewildered. They're offering preferential trading rights and technological exchange. They're even throwing in access to 3 of their terraformed moons as a gesture of goodwill. Jack, who had spent the morning dodging questions about Earth's classified polar defense system, just nodded tiredly. In the 3 weeks since the spreadsheet incident, as it was now officially known, Earth had somehow gained more diplomatic leverage than any newcomer species in Coalition history. Did they happen to mention why they're being so generous? Jack asked, already knowing the answer. They made some odd reference to respecting our strategic ambiguity and hoping to schedule joint military exercises next year, the Secretary-General replied. Which is strange, considering their ambassador fainted when I casually mentioned our Antarctic research facilities. Jack sighed. I may have implied that Antarctica is where we keep our experimental weapons. I didn't specify what kind. Well, whatever you implied, keep it up. We've made more progress in 3 weeks than we expected to make in 3 years. After the meeting, Jack found Vila waiting outside his office. Over the past few weeks, the silver-skinned alien had become something of a friend, the only Coalition representative who seemed more amused than alarmed by the growing myths surrounding Earth's military. Commander Hudson, she greeted him with a slight antenna twitch that he'd learned was the equivalent of a smile. I brought you something. She handed him what looked like a smooth black stone. Thanks. Jack turned it over in his hand. It's a universal translator. Much better than the official one the Coalition provided. This one picks up emotional undertones and cultural contexts. Jack raised an eyebrow. Is this your way of telling me I've been missing important subtext in my diplomatic meetings? Let's just say that when Admiral Zorn said he wanted to test your mettle in glorious combat, he wasn't suggesting a friendly competition. Vila's antennae flattened against her head. Which brings me to why I'm really here. She glanced around before continuing in a lower voice. There's something you should know. Before your creative accounting became the talk of the galaxy, several species were preparing to contest Earth's admission to the Coalition. Contest how? Exactly, Jack asked. Through immediate resource seizure, Vila said bluntly. What you might call invasion. Jack's blood ran cold. You're saying we were about to be attacked? The Zubat Collective had already positioned harvesters near your asteroid belt. The Droxians were mapping your ocean floors for mining operations. Even the Klaxians, yes, including your admirer Admiral Zorn, had plans for your planet. And now they're all sending us gift baskets and technology instead, Jack said slowly. Because they think we're hiding some kind of superweapon arsenal. Vila's antennae twitched with what might have been guilt. I probably shouldn't be telling you this, but the Coalition has strict rules against invading planets with significant military capabilities. It's simply too costly. Jack leaned back against the wall, processing this information. So our clerical error accidentally saved us from becoming an interstellar mining colony. Essentially, yes. Vila hesitated. There's more. The Coalition Security Council is meeting tomorrow to discuss Earth's case. Inspector Crix is pushing for a formal investigation of your facilities. That would be problematic, Jack said carefully. I thought you might say that Vila's silver skin shimmered with what Jack had come to recognize as mischief, which is why I took the liberty of giving them the impression that Earth's defense systems are linked to your planetary core in a way that external scanning might. Jack stared at her. Why would you help us? Vila's antennae drooped slightly. Let's just say not everyone in the Coalition agrees with how new species are treated. Some of us believe in actual cooperation rather than exploitation. Well, Jack said, finally cracking a genuine smile, I guess we'd better make sure Earth lives up to its fearsome reputation, then. 6 months after the spreadsheet incident, Jack stood before the Coalition High Council, sweating through his dress uniform. The circular chamber held representatives from over 40 alien species, all staring at him with various configurations of eyes, optical sensors, and sensory appendages. Commander Hudson intoned the council chairperson, a gelatinous being whose translucent body pulsed with bioluminescent patterns. You have requested this extraordinary session to make an important disclosure regarding Earth's military capabilities. Jack cleared his throat. Yes, chairperson. After much discussion, Earth has decided it's time for complete transparency with our Coalition partners. A ripple of murmurs spread through the chamber. Admiral Zorn, who had somehow secured observer status for the session, leaned forward eagerly. The truth is, Jack continued, Earth does not have 44 million tanks. We do not have orbital defense platforms. We definitely do not have bears with laser vision. Our military capabilities are exactly what you'd expect from a species at our technological level. Silence fell over the chamber, heavy and uncomfortable. The initial report contained clerical errors, Jack explained. But when we saw how everyone reacted, we decided to let the misunderstanding continue while we established ourselves in the galactic community. He braced himself for outrage, for accusations of deception, for diplomatic disaster. Instead, the council chairperson began to vibrate in what Jack's translator identified as laughter. "Oh, thank the cosmic void," wheezed a reptilian counselor, slumping in relief. "We've been terrified of accidentally starting a war with your planet." "Wait," Jack said, confused. "You're not angry?" Inspector Crick stepped forward, horizontal eyelids blinking rapidly. "Commander Hudson, did you truly believe Earth was the first species to embellish their military reports?" What Jack stared at him. Ambassador Thrix's forearms gestured expansively. "It is something of an unspoken tradition. New species often exaggerate their capabilities to deter potential aggressors." "But you were so suspicious," Jack protested. "You kept demanding accurate numbers." "Of course," Vila said, her antennae quivering with amusement. "That's part of the game. We act suspicious, you act secretive, and everyone maintains plausible deniability." From the back of the chamber came a bellow of disappointment. Admiral Zorn stormed toward the exit, his tentacles drooping in profound disillusionment. "No laser bears?" "None. I had plans for those bears." As Zorn departed, the council chairperson's body rippled with renewed humor. "Commander Hudson, your species has demonstrated remarkable aptitude for what we call creative diplomacy. In fact, we believe Earth might be uniquely qualified for a special role within the Coalition." 3 months later, Jack found himself with a new title, Director of the Department of Honest Mistakes. His office, located in the newly completed Earth Embassy, had become the unofficial channel for diplomatic miscommunications that needed to be resolved without anyone losing face. "So let me get this straight," Jack said to the alien diplomat seated across from him. "The Zentari accidentally gifted the Qualians a device they claim was a weather controller, but was actually a weather destroyer, and now they need us to help them convince the Qualians it was a translation error." "Precisely," said the Zentari representative. "We heard you humans are experts at this sort of thing." Jack leaned back in his chair and smiled. "Well, it just so happens that humans have thousands of years of experience turning horrifying mistakes into diplomatic opportunities." He glanced at the plaque on his wall, a gift from Vila when the department opened. It read, "Earth, where oops becomes according to plan in record time." "Let me show you how it's done," Jack said, reaching for his keyboard. "It all starts with a spreadsheet.